friend, astronaut Don Thomas. He's got a great story. I want you to pay particular attention, like I was telling you before, how long it took him to become an astronaut. I can't wait to hear your questions. And so at this time, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, astronaut Don Thomas.
Okay.
Thank you, Don, for being here. Yay!
Thank you very much. Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Newberry. How's everybody today? I checked on the weather. I see you got a nice sunny day down there. I live up in Baltimore, just a little bit north of Washington, D.C. And we have a sunny morning, but it's really cold out there today. But I'm really happy to be here with you. As you heard, my name is Don Thomas. I had the amazing opportunity to fly on 4 space shuttle missions. I was on Space Shuttle Columbia 3 times and Discovery once. And during those 4 missions, I went to space a total of 4 times. And during those periods, I went around the Earth 692 times. So I have seen a lot of our planet during those flights, and I'm going to share with you a little bit this morning of what it's like to live and work in space and how we eat and sleep. I'll show you some of my favorite pictures of the Earth, and we'll save time at the end for questions, okay? So with that, this is my first picture, and this is not a picture of me, but it very well could have been me. I was only 6 years old when the first American astronaut went into space. That was a long time ago, back in 1961. And at my elementary school, they brought us all to the gymnasium. We sat on the floor, watched a small black and white TV that morning. And as soon as the launch was over, I said to myself, I want to do that. So ever since I was a little boy, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut, I wanted to go into space. I wanted to experience zero gravity, and I wanted to see sunrises and sunsets with my own eyes from space. So I always knew what I wanted to do, and it took me a long time and a lot of hard work to get there. All during elementary school, middle school, and high school, I worked hard and did my best on every subject, math and science, but reading and history, art, music, gym, whatever I was working on, I gave it my best effort. After high school, I went on to college and got my bachelor's degree in physics, one of the sciences. And then I stayed in school and got my master's and my doctorate, my PhD in engineering. So after 10 years of college, I got out. I started working for a company in New Jersey called Bell Laboratories. And I started applying to become an astronaut. And NASA selects new astronauts every 3 or 4 years. And it was about 2 years after I got out of college, NASA made a big announcement. They're looking for new astronauts. I was all excited. I wrote to them. I got an application, filled it out, and I mailed it in. And I never heard back from NASA. You know, it was about 6 months later, I saw in the New York Times a little article that said NASA selects 15 new astronauts. And I read that article quickly, and my name wasn't on that list. And that's when I realized this was going to be a lot harder than I ever thought it was going to be. I didn't give up. I decided to try again. 2 years later, there was another astronaut selection, sent my application in, and guess what happened that time?
What?
They turned me down again. And I decided, well, I got to do more to get noticed by NASA. I wasn't even getting close in the competition. So I looked into the backgrounds of the people that were making it in there, and there were a few clues for me. Most of the astronauts they were selecting had some flying experience. It wasn't a requirement, but it seemed to really help. So I learned how to fly a plane, got my private pilot's license. I learned to skydive. I learned to scuba dive. And I taught a university course. These are all things that seemed to help to become an astronaut. So I worked on them. 3 years later, another astronaut selection, this is number 3, sent my application in, and NASA called me up and invited me to Houston for a week of medical tests and an interview. And out of the thousands of people that apply for these positions, NASA will whittle it down to 100. They bring you to Houston, and then you spend a full week on a really thorough medical exam. And then there's a 1-hour interview. I passed all the medical tests. The interview went really well. I went back to my job, and it was about a month later, NASA called me up, and they said, Don, thank you very much for applying. We had a lot of good candidates. We didn't select you, but good luck in the future. And I was in shock. I hung up that phone, and I couldn't believe they had turned me down a 3rd time. And I decided, you know, I need to give up on this silly dream of mine of becoming an astronaut. I gave it my best shot. I worked hard, but they weren't going to take me. So I decided I'd go to bed, get a good night's sleep, and in the morning when I wake up, I would put together a new plan for what I was going to do with my career. So I went to bed that night, and the next morning when I woke up, the very first thought that popped into my head was, I still want to be an astronaut. So I asked myself, is there any more of these things that I could do to, you know, increase my chances? And again, by looking at who NASA was selecting, most of the astronauts were coming from people that already worked at one of the NASA centers, and most of them were working at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. So I quit my job in New Jersey. I drove down to Texas. I got a job with NASA as an engineer working on the Space Shuttle program. Did that for 3 years. Then there was another astronaut selection. This is number 4. Sent my application in, got called up for the medical test and the interviews. And this time I got a phone call from NASA and they said, Don, are you still interested in being an astronaut? We'd like to offer you the job. I said yes. I hung up the phone and I was jumping up and down, yelling and screaming for 10 minutes because I knew, I'd become an astronaut. I was going to make it up into space. I was 6 years old when I first dreamed of this, and I got selected by NASA when I was 35 years old, and I started a 4-year training program for my first mission. So the first time I went into space, I was 39 years old. That's pretty much an old man, right?
No.
This is a great group. You are a very polite group here. I love you guys. But some of the careers you're going to pick, it's going to take a while to get there. So don't be afraid if you want to be a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, an artist, whatever it is you want to do. It's going to take time to get there, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. But if you're willing to work hard, you don't give up, you can accomplish anything you want to. And I went from this little boy just dreaming of going into space to getting assigned on 4 space shuttle missions. This is the crew from my last flight, and the last time I was in space was about 20 years ago already. And typically we fly with a crew of 7. We've got 2 military pilots here with the helmet that help us fly the shuttle. On the left-hand side with the helmet is Jim Halsell. He was our commander on this mission. He was an Air Force test pilot, used to fly the SR-71 Blackbird spy plane. Our pilot on the mission, on the right-hand side with the helmet, is Susan Still. And she's a pretty unique individual. She's only the 2nd woman to pilot the space shuttle. And Susan was one of our country's top Navy fighter pilots. So it was a great opportunity for me to fly with her on this mission. And then in the background, you see 5 of our science astronauts. We're called mission specialists. And our job is to do the science on board. We work the robotic arm on the shuttle if there's a need for that. We deploy satellites and do spacewalks. So we each have our area of specialty on the crew. And you probably don't recognize that guy on the far right-hand side, but that's the way I used to look 20 years ago before glasses, gray hair, and wrinkles. And no laughing. I heard some of that giggling in there. Okay. There you see the shuttle on the launch pad, and I took this picture the night before my first mission. Went out there about midnight or so, and it was so amazing just to stand there at the base of the space shuttle, all lit up as you see it here. And as I stood there gazing up at it, I had incredible butterflies in my stomach. I was a little bit scared, a little bit nervous, but mainly really excited because I knew, excuse me, in 12 hours I'd be sitting inside that thing blasting off, and I almost couldn't believe where I was and what I was about to do. So they bring the astronauts out to the launch pad 3 hours before liftoff. We take an elevator up the side, and then there's a little access arm we walk across to crawl inside the shuttle. There I am in my launch suit. I've taken the elevator up, standing in front of Space Shuttle Columbia there in the background, and they strap us into our seats one at a time. And we've got shoulder harnesses and seat belts. It's like being strapped into a car seat, nice and secure, because there's a lot of shaking and vibration during liftoff, and you don't want to fall out of your seat and hurt yourself or damage equipment. So they strap us in one at a time, and I'm just out here waiting. When it's my turn, they'll say, hey, Don, we're ready for you. I'll turn that corner to the left, walk down that access arm, and at the end of it there, you see the round hatch for the shuttle. Before I climb on board, there's 2 gentlemen in the white suits will help me put on a parachute harness. They'll do a last-minute check of all my gear, and once everything looks good, I'll get on my hands and knees, crawl through that round hatch, and then they strap me into my seat. Once we're all strapped in, they close and seal that hatch, and everybody moves away from us 3.5 miles, and it gets very quiet out on the launch pad up until 6 seconds before liftoff. At that point, the 3 engines at the tail of the shuttle start coming up to full power. We're still physically bolted down to the launch pad at that point. Computers are checking everything, and once the computers say those 3 engines look good, then we light the 2 big white rockets on either side called solid rocket boosters. They look like giant white pencils there. And the minute they light, immediately we take off. And laying on my back, I could hear the roar of the engines. You feel the shaking and vibration. And when those engines all lit, It felt as if somebody had their hand in the middle of my back and that they were just pushing me up into the sky. And that's what the shuttle's doing, literally pushing us, tossing us up in the air. This picture is taken 4 seconds after liftoff. We're going 120 miles an hour already. So we don't ease off the launch pad. It's literally boom, and you accelerate faster and faster every second. This picture is taken from below. You see those 3 big engines at the tail of the shuttle. We've got our 2 side boosters, and we're on our way. This picture is taken from a NASA chase plane a few miles away. We launched right along the coastline of Florida, about 60 miles east of Orlando, near Disney World there. And the shuttle, you can't even see it in this picture, but you can see the bright flame from our engines, which is nearly 1/4 mile long. Excuse me. 2 minutes into the flight, we're 25 miles up in the air, and after 2 minutes, we're traveling at a speed of nearly 3,000 miles an hour already. And those 2 side rockets separate, they fall back to Earth, and we recover them and use them again on another mission. So at this point, we have our space shuttle right here in the center. Those 3 white dots are the 3 engines that are burning. This is our big fuel tank, and that's going to take us the rest of the way to space. 8.5 minutes after liftoff, the engine shut down. Gets perfectly quiet for a second. Then there's a big kaboom. We fire some explosive charges, and the space shuttle separates from that fuel tank. And that thing falls back in the atmosphere and burns up like a shooting star. It's the only part of the shuttle we don't reuse. And that leaves us then with the space shuttle orbiting the Earth. It only takes 8.5 minutes to get to space. That was always amazing to me. I bet it took some of you more than 8.5 minutes to get to school this morning. And to think in that short period of time, you could be 200 miles above the Earth. And at this point, we're traveling at a speed of 18,000 miles an hour. 18,000 miles an hour is 5 miles a second. So imagine how fast you could get home from school today if you could travel 5 miles a second. Most of you would be home in 1 or 2 seconds. You know, we go so fast that we orbit the Earth, we go all the way around in only an hour and a half. So during your 30-minute lunch period at school, if you were in space, you would travel 1/3 of the way around the planet during that time. This is Chaki Mukai. She was the first Japanese woman in space. And in space, you don't walk like we're used to doing here on Earth. When you want to move around in space, it just takes a little push with your finger, and you go sailing through the air like Superman or Superwoman. If you like doing somersaults, you can start flipping in the air, and you'll go round and round all day until you get tired and reach out to grab a hold of something. So it's a lot of fun up there. Do you think you'd have a good time in space?
Yeah.
It's a blast floating around up there. This is a picture of Susan Still, our pilot, and she's typing on a laptop computer there. And if you look on the left-hand side, you see she's got her toes hooked on a vertical gold pole. If she didn't hook her toes like that, every time she'd hit the keyboard on the computer, what do you think might happen?
She might fly.
She would float up in the opposite direction. But if she just anchors her toes a little bit, she can float in the air, stay in position, and type on the computer all day long. So space is a really fun, comfortable environment to be in. And in space, there's no up or down. I think we pretty much all agree which way is up and which way is down in your classroom this morning. But in space, there is no up or down. And you know here on Earth, if you stand on your head or hang upside down from a tree, all the blood rushes to your head because of gravity. Have you ever felt the pressure from that? Well, in space, that doesn't happen. In space, without gravity, you go upside down, you feel totally normal. And wherever your head is pointed in space, your brain says that direction is up for you. And wherever your feet are pointed, that's down. So in this picture, we have Nancy and Kevin from my second flight. And Nancy's looking at Kevin there saying, hey, Kevin, you're upside down. Well, Kevin's looking right back at her saying, no, you're upside down. In his little world here, Nancy's the one that appears to be upside down. So it doesn't matter how you orient yourself. You never feel like you're upside down. It's everybody else in the room. And in space, we don't have a refrigerator, freezer, microwave oven. So all of our food is freeze-dried. And it comes in small plastic packages like I'm holding here. And to prepare a meal, we bring it over to that food station. There's a needle that'll poke inside that package. We can inject hot water in there. This dry, hard food will absorb that water. It'll soften up. And after 2 or 3 minutes, we just take a pair of scissors and cut it open, and we can eat it with a normal fork or spoon. All the food has a little blue dot of Velcro. Can you see the Velcro on there?
Yeah.
And after we make our meal, we could just prepare our food. We could Velcro it to ourselves, and then you just float over to the window, and you can watch the Earth go by, and you have your lunch or dinner right there. How handy is that? We don't use a dinner plate because what would happen to that food in space? It's going to float away. So everything has Velcro. We can stick it to ourselves. We can stick it to the wall behind us to keep it from floating away. Now, for drinking in space, it's a little different as well. You can't drink out of a normal glass or bottle like we're used to doing here on Earth. If I had this bottle of water in space, I could take the top off, tip it upside down to get a drink, and nothing would happen. Without gravity, that liquid doesn't fall or pour out of the bottle. So we can't drink out of a glass or bottle in space, and instead, we drink out of little foil pouches like I have here. This is a bag of powdered orange juice. And all you do is bring it to that food station. There's a needle that'll poke in there. We can inject the water. Then you just mix it up a little bit with your fingers. You poke a straw in there, and then you squeeze it in your mouth, and that's how we drink in space. Does that remind you of anything that may be in your lunch today?
Kool-Aid, juice box.
Kool-Aid, a juice box. Have you ever had a Capri Sun?
Yes.
It's just like that. It's an aluminum bag, and that's exactly how we drink in space. And in this picture on the right-hand side, you see a little bag there. That's a bag of lemonade somebody made, and they Velcroed it to the wall to keep it from floating away. In this picture, I've got a bag of tropical punch in my hand, and I've squeezed that bag of punch, and some of it floated away and got away from me there. And what looks like a little red golf ball right in front of my face is actually a blob of tropical punch. Any liquid will form a perfectly round ball. It'll float there in front of you, and you can go up to it and either gobble it down, go with one gulp, or the more polite astronauts will take a straw. You can poke it in there and then just drink it, and you'll see that blob get smaller and smaller and smaller and disappear. Exercise is really important in space. We use our muscles all the time when you're walking between classrooms or in and out of school. But in space, to move around, it's a little push with my finger, and I just float through the air. And everything is weightless in space. I can lift your car at home with one finger. So we don't use our muscles. We had this little bicycle we'd ride every day for about 45 minutes. We'd get your heart muscle working, get your leg muscles working, so that when you come back to Earth at the end of the mission, you're still in good shape. Now, sleeping's a little different. The inside of the shuttle's pretty small, and we didn't have any dedicated bedrooms. So when it was time to go to bed, we would take a sleeping bag, put it up on the wall. You just float up there, slip inside, zip it up, and you go to bed. You see this astronaut's wearing dark eye shades here. Whoops. Sorry. Hold on a minute. Hold on, it got away from me. Okay, this astronaut's wearing dark eye shades because we go around the Earth every hour and a half. And if you don't want the sun coming in your eyes all the time, you need to wear the eye shades. And then he's got his arms crossed across his chest. You know, here on Earth, if you totally relax, your arms will fall to your side. But in space, if you totally relax, your arms float right in front of your face. So can you imagine you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, and you see two hands floating right there in front of your face? Astronauts are not that brave, so we tuck our arms in like you see here just to be nice and snug. Okay, now for cleaning up in space, we don't have a bathtub, we don't have a shower, we don't even have a sink like you have in your kitchen or bathroom at home. So to clean up in space, we've got some of those drink bags that I showed you. Excuse me, and instead of having powdered juice in them, a few of these will have powdered soap. And we can add hot water. You mix up a bag of hot soapy water, and you put it on a washcloth, and you just give yourself a sponge bath. For washing your hair, we've got that special shampoo called no-rinse shampoo. And this was developed for people in the hospital who can't get out of bed to take a shower. And it's very easy to use, doesn't require any water. All you do is squirt some of that in your hair, you work up a lather, then you take a towel and pat it dry, and you're done. I love the bottom line on the bottle. It may be a little hard to read there, but it says, for beautifully clean, full-bodied hair. And I want to show you what that looks like in space. That's Susan, our pilot, and anybody with longer hair, it's going to float all over in space. I'm not picking on Susan. Even my short hair floats all over. We say that every day in space is a bad hair day, and that's pretty accurate. I want to show you the granddaddy of all bad hair days in space. Are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
'Kay, okay, hold on. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 1
And there you see Marsha Ivins. She's one of our shuttle astronauts. She flew on 5 space shuttle missions. She had really long hair, as you can see, but she wouldn't leave it like this normally during the mission. Otherwise, the rest of us would be like scuba diving through seaweed. She'd put it in a ponytail, but just did this for the picture. You guys know what this is here? Should we just skip this? So we'll skip this, right? You guys don't want to hear about this. You want to hear about it? You know, I just spoke to a school yesterday and they voted me down. But if you guys want to hear about this, we'll do that. This is the toilet on board the shuttle. It's in a small closet area, maybe 4 feet across, 5 feet high. Has a curtain that goes across the front like a shower curtain for privacy. And in the center there, we've got a white toilet seat like our toilets on Earth. But here on Earth, we use gravity to collect the waste material. What do you think might happen in space? We're not going to talk about that here today. So this is kind of like a porta potty. You may see at a football game or a construction site. And in the bowl part of the toilet down here, we have giant fans. And to go to the bathroom, there's a little white knob off to the side. You push that forward. It'll activate those fans, and it sucks air from the toilet seat downward. So we use that down rush of air to collect the waste material to kind of act like gravity. And in the front there, you see 2 places you can put your feet into, so you anchor yourself down so you're not floating all over as you're trying to go to the bathroom. And I'll bet that's more than you needed to know here today, right? Okay, and in space, everything floats. If you're brushing your teeth and you want to rinse out your mouth, you can let go of your toothbrush and toothpaste, float across the shuttle, and when you come back, they should be floating there right where you left them. And I want to wrap it up by showing you some pictures of the Earth, and whenever an astronaut has a free moment, we float to the window to watch the Earth go by. I've got a map in my hand here. I'm trying to figure out where we are around planet Earth, and I'm looking at towards the tail end of the shuttle. And I took a camera right up to that window on the left-hand side there, and I pressed it against a glass, and I took a picture so you can see exactly what my eyes are seeing. And this is the view I get to see out the back. So there's the beautiful blue Earth from 200 miles up. All the blue in this picture is the Pacific Ocean. The white area are puffy clouds. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side there, you see Baja California, part of Mexico. So San Diego, California is just in the upper right-hand corner of that picture. And if you look really carefully at the bottom edge of the Earth, either on the right-hand side of the shuttle over here or over on the left-hand side, right near the bottom edge, you may see a little thin blue line. Can you see that?
Yes.
Any guess as to what that blue line is?
Oh, the atmosphere.
It's the atmosphere, exactly right. You know, on a sunny day there in Newberry, you look up at that blue sky, it looks like it goes on forever and ever. But from space, we see the atmosphere edge on. And it looks like you see here just a paper-thin layer. Most of the air protecting us on planet Earth is in that first 20 miles. And that's it. And that's why when we pollute the air, it can have such a major impact on our planet. Here you see a giant hurricane. I saw many big storms there. This was about 400 miles across. And we flew right over the center of it. Do you know what that's called? The eye of the hurricane. And from 200 miles up, I could go to the window, look straight down right into the eye and see the blue water of the Pacific Ocean. The next picture will show you the eye looking straight into it from directly overhead. Right there. And that's about maybe 15 miles across. But you get calm winds in the very center of it. But just 7 or 8 miles away, that's the eye wall where you get the highest winds. And this one had wind speeds of about 135 miles an hour. So a very powerful storm. Here you see a volcano venting steam. This is in the South Pacific near Indonesia. Over here on the left-hand side, you see a volcanic crater half underwater there. And here you see the Himalaya mountains. And right at the center is Mount Everest, tallest mountain on planet Earth. And right there is the very top of Mount Everest. Now, I can, sit here in front of you and tell you without lying, I have seen the top of Mount Everest with my own eyes about 25 times during my missions. I call it the lazy man's way to see the top of Mount Everest, right? No climbing involved, just cruising overhead at 18,000 miles an hour as I drink my juice. But I use this picture to illustrate some of the things I got to see and do during my career. I've never climbed Mount Everest, never will in my lifetime, but I've seen the top of it many times. I've seen the Great Barrier Reef off Australia. I've seen the Amazon rainforest down in Brazil and South America. And I've seen Mount Kilimanjaro, big volcanic peak in Africa poking up through the clouds. So many amazing sights around planet Earth. And here you see a sunrise from space. Because we go around the Earth every hour and a half, we get to see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24-hour day. And they're all a little different depending on volcanic dust and clouds. And again, from space, the one impression you have when you see a sunrise is you see how thin our atmosphere is. Again, that's a layer, you're looking at that orange, red, blue layer, about 20 miles thick. Does anybody recognize this beautiful part of our planet?
Ocean.
It looks like an ocean here. I want to put a couple landmarks in here. Have you guys ever been to Lake Murray or Lake Greenwood?
Yes.
And you can see them there in the picture, and then you can see right where Newberry is. So if you were outside maybe playing in the playground this day, you're probably in this picture. You see some of the clouds, those high clouds near the top of the picture as well. And right there that's Newberry. Okay, and this is at nighttime. I wanted to show you what the Earth looks like. This is over the southeast United States. So over here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is Orlando here. Right over here, you see Atlanta. So Newberry, you guys are probably just a little bit to the right of Atlanta, maybe where I have the arrow there. So, and you see all the lights in that portion, all the lights around Newberry. You know what those lights are from?
Stars?
That's from you guys staying up late studying, right? Or maybe your teacher staying up late grading papers. Could that be? Okay. Well, at the end of the mission, it's time for us to come home. We fire 2 engines from the back of the shuttle. It slows our speed just a few hundred miles an hour, and we begin our fall back to Earth. And it takes 8.5 minutes to get to space, but it takes us about an hour to re-enter the atmosphere. And we end up landing at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, touch down like an airplane. We deploy that big drag parachute to help slow us down. And then we just put the brakes on and roll to a stop. And we wait for them to open the hatch so we can get out. And it takes them about an hour before they can open the hatch. And when you first come back from space, you feel like you weigh about 2,000 pounds. Because you've been floating around in weightlessness for 2 weeks, and then you suddenly come back to this pull of gravity, just a normal pull we feel today, but it felt so heavy for me. My arms were heavy, my legs were heavy. I was a little dizzy when I got back, and it took about a day or so for that dizziness to go away, and maybe a week or so to get your muscle strength back, and then you're pretty much back to normal. So this picture was taken just 2 hours after I landed on my first mission. That's me on the left-hand side. And after we took this picture, I remember turning around and I looked up at the word Columbia there. And I thought, what an amazing vehicle the space shuttle is. This was my house in space for 2 weeks. This thing protected me from the fiery reentry through the atmosphere. And then one of the next thoughts that popped into my head was, I got to do this again. And it's like going on a great roller coaster. Have you ever been on a really fun ride and you get off of it and you want to run around, get back in line and do it again? I do that all the time, and as soon as I landed on my first mission, I said, wow, that was amazing. I got to do that again. And I went on to fly a total of 4 space shuttle missions. So that's a little bit about living and working in space. What do you think, Janet? Should we see if they have any questions here?
Absolutely. All right, so guys, we have a time for a few questions. If whomever wants to ask a question, Molly or whomever the teacher is there, if you want to have the student come and stand right in front of your computer camera and ask their question, we have got a few minutes to do that. Don is being very generous with his time this morning. So who has a question? Who would like to ask a question to Astronaut Don? All right.
Coming up right now. Come on over here, sweetie.
Make sure you tell me your name, okay?
Marshall, scoot over so they can
Okay, here we go. Look into the camera right there to say your name.
My name is Zeb.
And what is
I
your
want to know where you are.
Right now, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, near Washington, D.C. I live about an hour north of Washington, D.C. Pretty amazing that we can do this, huh? That I can visit your classroom via Janet's planet here.
Who's next?
My name is Mafra. How long did it take you to get back to space? Did it take like 8 minutes?
Yeah, on my second mission, it only takes 8.5 minutes to get to space. Once those engines light, it's a quick trip up there. Then the engine shut down and it's perfectly quiet. It's really amazing when the engine shut down and suddenly you get out of your seat and you're floating in the air in zero gravity.
My name is Max, and I would wonder, what are all the names of the space shuttles that you have been in?
Okay, I was on Space Shuttle Columbia here, Max, 3 times, and then Space Shuttle Discovery once. We also have Space Shuttle Atlantis, that's now down at the Kennedy Space Center down in Florida. We had Space Shuttle Endeavour, that's out in California. And then we had Space Shuttle Challenger as well.
We have another student coming. Here we go.
Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Gavin, and I'm wondering if did you feel dizzy when it vibrated so much when you went out of the atmosphere?
When we were launching, there was a lot of shaking and vibration, but I never felt dizzy from that. It felt more like being in the back of a pickup truck going down a bumpy road where you're just bouncing around like that. You also get pushed back in your seat because of the acceleration. And if you weigh 100 pounds, suddenly you feel like you weigh 300 pounds. So it kind of feels like somebody's sitting on your chest, pinning you down. But it's not difficult to breathe. You know, it's a little uncomfortable. But after 8.5 minutes, those engines shut down and you're floating around up there. So it's a quick trip, but it's a lot of fun once you get there.
My name is Ellis, and I was wondering, how does the food taste up there?
Boy, that's a great question. And if I show you the food here, you probably can't see it really well, but does it look that good? No, this is cream spinach. Anybody there like cream spinach? I see a few hands up, but the food is freeze-dried. It's kind of like camping food. Have you ever had instant oatmeal where you just add water, you mix it up, and it's ready to eat? That's kind of like our food. So the food isn't delicious. I tell people I would never go to a restaurant that serves space food. So don't go to space for the food, but you can go for the view out the window and for the experience of it all.
Hey, Don, I've heard that astronauts like the spicy stuff. Like one of the favorites is the shrimp cocktail and the cocktail sauce because doesn't like all of the fluids kind of make your rise up because, you know, there's no gravity keeping all those things down. So you can't really smell and maybe your taste buds are a little bit off because you're a little sinus stuffy. So did you like the spicy food as well?
Yeah, most astronauts like the spicy food and that freeze-dried shrimp cocktail is the most popular item ever flown in space by the astronauts. And it comes in a package like this, and it's got freeze-dried shrimp, and you just add cold water to it, and the cocktail sauce turns bright red, and the shrimp absorb that water, and they taste really good. We also fly little packs of ketchup and mustard and hot sauce that astronauts will use to spice up their food a little bit. So the food is a little bland. It isn't the best in the world. I couldn't wait when I got back to Earth at the end of the mission. I wanted to get a fresh salad, fresh fruit, and also, this is a secret, but I also would like to get a pepperoni pizza as soon as I got back.
My name is Daniel, and I'm wondering how loud was the boom when the fuel tank fell off? Yes.
Yeah. Man, that's a great question. There's a big boom, but it's kind of a muffled noise. Maybe it would be like a cannon going off, but if you had ear protection on. So we could hear it, but it wasn't super, super loud because it's kind of taking place, further away from where we're sitting inside the shuttle. But that's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. That was a good one.
Good job. Let me lift her up.
My name is Emily, and I was wondering how long it takes to get to Mars.
Okay, Emily, great question. We hope to send astronauts to Mars. I don't know if you could see the last picture here, but this shows you 2 astronauts landing on Mars, and we hope to send our astronauts there in about maybe 20 years from now. And this is an artist drawing of that day. So you see the landing craft, and then just to the right of it, you may see 2 humans there. And do you know who those astronauts are right there?
Is it Neil Armstrong?
These are the first 2 humans to set foot on Mars, and these astronauts are your students there, right there in Newberry.
Yay!
You guys are the perfect age to be astronauts going to Mars. 20 years from now, I'm going to be 80, so NASA's not sending me to Mars. And for their students here today, this is a bit of a secret, so I'm going to whisper it and never repeat this, okay? But your parents are too old to go to Mars, and your teachers are too old to go to Mars. But you guys are the perfect age. You'll be the generation undertaking these missions, and it's about maybe 4 to 6 months to get to Mars, 4 to 6 months to get home, and you'll be on the surface maybe for 2 years. So the full trip to Mars for some of you there will be about a 3-year, maybe 2 to 3 year round trip.
Wow. Can I ask your question?
My name is Thomas, and how many missions have you been on?
Thomas, I was on 4 space shuttle missions, 3 on Columbia and 1 on Discovery. And each of them were about 2 weeks long.
You have a lot of questions. There are a lot of very curious kids here. Here we go.
My name is Brady, and my question is, how many planets do you pass?
Planets? How many planets do you pass?
Well, you know, going into space on the space shuttle, we would just go up 200 miles above the Earth, and we would orbit around. So the space shuttle only flew around planet Earth. We didn't go by any other planets. We, almost 50 years ago, we were sending astronauts to the moon. And we'll be doing that again, maybe in the next 10 years or so. We hope to send astronauts back to the moon. But we haven't been to any other planets yet. But from the space shuttle, I could see the other planets there. I could see Mercury, Venus. I could see the Earth, as I showed you, and Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So I could see them. But the planets from space look just like they do here on Earth. They look like bright stars. If you go out in the sky tonight after the sun sets, look in the west, you'll see a really, really bright star there, and that's Venus. So you can actually see Venus with your eye, but it just looks like a bright, bright star, and that's the way the planets look in space. The one thing that's a little different in space is looking at the stars. You know how the stars twinkle here on Earth?
Yes.
It's because the starlight is coming through the atmosphere, causes a little shimmering effect. But in space, we're up above the atmosphere, so the stars don't twinkle. They're all steady, steady pinpoints of light. So we can't sing that Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star song up in space. It doesn't work up there.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Dalton, and I wonder, how long did it take for you to get, like, used to bouncing around in space?
Yeah, Dalton, good question. When I first got up there, I had experienced, brief moments of zero gravity in training, but it felt a little clumsy. You're bouncing into everything. You push off the wall and you push too hard and you slam into it. So it takes most astronauts at least a day or two until they can fully adjust. And then you push off with your finger and you float through the air like Superman or Superwoman. And you get really good at it, but it takes a few days. First couple of days, I tell people it's like a baby moose in a china shop. Your legs and arms are flailing around and people are a little uncoordinated, but then they get really good soaring through the air.
And one of the things I want you to know about is one of Newton's laws. It says for every action, there is an opposing reaction. So you know how he was showing you the astronaut that was doing her email and typing something on the computer? So for every action, every time she hit a keystroke, if her toes weren't around that pole, there would have been an opposing reaction. So you guys actually kind of like got just a glimpse of one of Newton's laws today, because it's like when I got to go on the zero-G plane, I didn't go into space, but I flew on a plane where I got to experience what astronauts experience in space, and that was for about 20 to 25 seconds. So the first time I went on a zero-G plane, they said, we want you to release your candy. So in my head, the only way that you release candy is you give it a little throw. So, I didn't realize they just wanted me to open my hand. So I had M&Ms and I thought, I'm going to give it a good toss here. So I threw the candy and it went forward. Guess which direction my body went?
Backwards.
Backwards, because for every action, there is an equal or opposite reaction. So the candy went forward and I went backwards. That was pretty cool to experience. But you have a question, sir. What's your question?
Have you ever been on the dark side of the moon?
I have not. You know, we only had 12 astronauts that went to the moon, landed on the moon, and that was when I was in high school, almost 50 years ago now. And we had other astronauts orbit the moon, but again, that's been 40, 50 years ago. So I've never been on the dark side of the moon there. I've only been on the dark side of the Earth. We go around the Earth every hour and a half, and we get 45 minutes of daylight, 45 minutes of nighttime. But maybe some of you will have the opportunity to go to the moon and go on to Mars, and you'll get to experience what it's like on the backside of the moon there.
All right, we've
Janet,
got
do we
time
have-
for a couple more questions. What's your question, my dear?
My name is Olivia, and how many days does it take?
To do what? To go around the Earth, or to? Okay, how many days does it take to go around the Earth?
To go around the whole Earth, Olivia, it takes only an hour and a half. That's it. We're going so fast, and we go 16 times every 24 hours. We go around the Earth.
And
We've
did
got
you
another
also
student.
spacewalk during your missions? Were you out doing EVAs?
Yeah, I never did a spacewalk or EVA on my flights. We didn't have any scheduled spacewalk, and they always train two of the astronauts to go out if there's an emergency. So I was trained on my 4 missions to go out there in case we had to repair something, but nothing bad happened. I always was hoping maybe I could go out for some small, non-life-threatening event, but nothing sent me out there. But I always wanted to do that. I thought it'd be so amazing to see the Earth just through the little visor in your helmet.
Wow. Okay, one last question.
What's the temperature in space?
That is a great, great question.
Great question.
In the sunlight in space, it's really hot, like 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And at nighttime, when the sun goes down, it's minus 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So every hour and a half as we orbit the Earth, there's 45 minutes when it's super hot and 45 minutes when it's super cold. But inside the shuttle, we're protected. We've got little insulation tiles. I'll go back to the one space shuttle picture. Near the nose, you may see little black squares. Those are insulation tiles to protect us from the heat of reentry. And they also protect us from the heat and the cold of space. But space is really hot or really cold, depending if you're in the sun or the shadow. Great question.
Great questions. Hey, everybody, let's say thank you to Mr. Don Thomas and just say thank you so much. Say thank you, Mr. Don.
Thank you, Mr. Don!
You're welcome. I've enjoyed talking with you today. The one thing I wanted to make sure you don't forget is to never give up on your dream. You know, NASA turned me down 3 times, and if I had given up, I wouldn't be here today sharing with you these experiences. So work hard every day in all your subjects. Always do your best and never give up. Many of you have dreams of what you want to do in the future. Don't give up on that. Keep working hard towards it. It's been great visiting with you, Newberry. Thank you so much.
Hey, Don, I wanted to tell you, one of your young ladies that asked you a question to just show you how Newberry is the center of the world. You spoke to her space camp last year.
Okay.
And gave her her badge.
That's great at the Space and Rocket Center. I go there every summer 3 or 4 times, and that's fantastic. I'm really glad to be able to.
Yes! Thank you for playing with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been fun.
Hey, will you guys all be at Newberry Opera House next Wednesday to come see Janet's Planet? Oh, well, you guys are in for a treat. You heard how Mr. Don said that one of you may walk on the moon someday. Well, somebody next week will get to virtually walk on the moon and get me some ilmenite-rich rocks. So maybe it's one of you guys. I can't wait to see you next Wednesday in Newberry. Again, guys, everybody have an amazing day. Go be awesome, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey, before we go, I tell you what, before we go, would you guys all like to get in front of the screen? I'm going to make the screen. Don, if you'll stop your share screen thing, I want you to all come around, and it's like kind of position yourself around the computer, and then that way, and you guys can get a picture. All right, so it's like, I'm going to mute my video here so you don't have to see me, and then you can come on around the computer and get a good picture of Don there in the background. All right, so
And maybe everybody give a thumbs up.
can you give a thumbs up? Yeah. All right, so hold on. I'm going to take a picture from my angle, and then you guys might want to turn around and face your teacher and get another angle. All right, so yeah, here we go. Everybody's giving a thumbs up. Oh, you guys are amazing. Good job. Now, everybody turn around and face your teacher. Face the window, because that way Mr. Don will be in the background. I'm going to make sure that we, okay, there we go. All right, Don, you start talking, and I think you'll take over the full screen.
Okay. Everybody give a thumbs up, and we're going to do a group shot. So I'm going to be behind you, but don't look over your shoulder. But I'm there with you today. Got it?
Thumbs up.
Great. It's been so much fun talking to you all in Newberry, and I hope I can come down there and visit you in person one day here.